extra printed copies.
I'll give you a signal.
Okay, sounds good. How are you, Jerry?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Whenever you guys are ready to start. You're all set.
Thank you,
Doing something new. Streaming live, we think.
Oh, that's great. Excellent.
I'm gonna try it out,
Okay.
just so you know.
All right. Welcome, everyone.
Kim. It's you.
Yes, we're all set.
Well,
To this third meeting of the CIP, that's the Capital Improvement Program meeting. And this is for financial year 2023. If we could just kick it off as usual with a round robin, where everyone can introduce themselves, that'd be great. Maybe Michelle would like to start.
Sure. Michelle Rulo, David Lewis Drive.
Joe Tom, 11 Ada Drive.
Paul First, Chesley Hill Road.
Pete Jabot, Mossfield Way.
Jerry Douglas, Town Manager.
All right, thank you. So typically, at this point in the process, the third meeting is a pretty short meeting because at this point, we've already reviewed the department replacement schedules provided by the department heads and the town manager. We've reviewed the 10-year plan from the manager. We've also reviewed the application requests for projects and for reserves. And then, of course, we have also reviewed the applications themselves, right? Sorry, I mentioned that. And we've met with the department heads to get any outstanding questions that we may have answered. So that was the last meeting. We met with both the fire chief and the public works director. And they did I have to say, I thought they did a very thorough job of explaining their applications. I thought both of them did. It was very helpful. And we met over at the fire station. So then since this last meeting, we went off on our own and we individually scored each of the applications in accordance with the criteria in the policy. And then we sent our scores over to Michelle, who was kind enough to collate them for us and put them into rankings. So that's where we are this evening. Tonight, we're going to look at those rankings and see if they're in line with what our general expectation was and see if they make sense to us. And then we'll decide if we're ready to make a recommendation to the selectmen. And then finally, I thought we'd also talk a little bit about the conveyance memo. I know last year I put together a short conveyance memo for the selectmen, and I think there might be some value there because that memo can carry on from the selectmen to the budget committee and to others to give them some context with regard to really why we feel the scores landed as they did and any outstanding things that we think are important to share. So I thought we might take just a few minutes and look at the notes. Michelle had included in her score sheet a section for notes, and I looked over those briefly and I saw that I think everyone included a few notes for each application. And so I thought it might be worth talking about briefly, which notes we feel kind of rise to the top and might be important to share in that conveyance memo. So that's pretty much all I've got here at the outset. I wonder if we could start by asking Michelle if she'd be willing to present the rankings for us.
Yep. Do you want the scores too, or just where everything landed?
Yeah, sure. You can give the scores.
So the first one was the stream crossing with 498, and close behind was the exhaust removal at 493. The Quint rehab was third at 485, and then the fourth was Public Works truck. Fifth one was assessing at 454. We had the chief's car for the sixth one at 443. Fire department generator, seventh at 433. Public Works Reserve, eighth at 430. And then town office generator, ninth at 409.
Okay, so the stream crossing application in order, again, stream crossing, exhaust removal, Quint rehab, public works truck, assessing, fire department chief's car, fire department generator, public works reserve, town office generator. Discussion. I had a chance to look briefly at the individual scores from everybody, that everyone submitted. And, it looked like there was some variance with regard to, for example, what people selected first or second or third. But it seemed to me to come out generally in a fairly reasonable way. Of course, stream crossing, I think it gets elevated because, of course, it gets those extra points related to the grant. And so every year that helps to elevate it. And I guess that's rightfully so, especially in this case where you have a situation where currently we have culverts. And at some point, those culverts are going to need to be replaced. And I'm assuming that when they do need to be replaced, that that's an in-stream job, and that we would have to get, I don't know exactly what the permitting process would be, if it'd be Army Corps, probably an Army Corps permit.
They will be involved.
Yeah, and so when that happens at some point in the future, when those culverts have to be replaced, they're probably going to be require that crossing have a natural bottom, and that it be a box culvert regular than regular culverts, I am assuming. So it is a little bit of pay me now or pay me later. I'm not sure if they would, let's say 10 years we don't do this, and 10 years down the road, that issue has to be addressed because we're having major washouts, or for whatever reasons, or those culverts get undermined and fail. Then, we would probably have to go the full distance and put in a box culvert at that time, I'm assuming. So I know for me, that was kind of a big point. I don't know what others thought, but, yeah, I'll just throw it out there, stream crossing. Where,
And I think for my lens going through this for the first time, I tried to rank kind of agnostic of maybe what I thought, where things should land. And
Okay.
of course, as you guys
Yeah.
predicted, it did kind of work out, where I thought things may have fallen, but tried to keep my thoughts away from that. I do think, just looking at my scores, certainly having the grant funding, as well as addressing state law and regulation, those two components, weighed in heavily to the overall, where it placed in my overall ranking, which did come in first.
okay, yeah, that's great, thank you, Pete. Yeah. So, Joe?
I had the opportunity to look at it from quite a bit of different slants here on what might be ARPA related and what might be reserved. And so I didn't take that into account when I graded.
Sure.
Or afterwards, I looked at it and I says, all right, well, which ones would we do ARPA and which ones would we do raising the funds? And I was just quickly trying to tally it up here because I didn't have a chance ahead of time. And it actually looks like a pretty good deal for the town at this point. when we go and recommend that, you know, we can utilize ARPA funds for a number of the projects and put, you know, some of the thing about ARPA is that you can't combine it with funds we've already raised for a project or are gonna raise for a project. So you have to, it has to be a, lack of a better word, just a brand-new project that's gonna be a one-time deal, and we're gonna raise all the money this time around. That's what ARPA's for. So, so it was interesting going through it when I went through it, and then I went back through it again about 4 or 5 times, and wasn't marked up sheets.
Yeah.
But definitely exhaust is an important one. Quint's an important item on the list. You know, all of them are very important for the town, and I think it's a good breakup of how this all lands in the end, from what I can tell.
Yeah. I think
You
so.
know, I think it's actually gonna be a pretty good, I'll say, good deal for the town, in regards to how to allocate the funds appropriately for the different projects, so.
Yeah. Michelle?
I didn't actually have the stream crossing ranking 1 in mind. Actually, it was 4th. I ended up with the exhaust removal, the Quint rehab, and the truck, almost the exact same scores.
That's about what I got too. I didn't have it 1 either, but yeah.
I mean, I think it's still important, and with the funds available, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what puts it to the top of the list for me. But I didn't have it at the very top.
Great, yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, so, I mean, I look at these rankings, they make sense to me. It was, you know, walking out of that meeting last week, I really felt like, gosh, this is gonna be really tough. Because all of these are really compelling projects. And I'm not sure where they're gonna land. But then when I really got down to it, certainly things like the exhaust removal ranked high. Also, when I reflected on that visit, you know, to the base, to the fire station, and saw the current system, how the ventilation currently operates, you know, and the fact, of course, that you know, it exchanges all the air, which certainly isn't great from an energy efficiency perspective. You lose all your heat, you know, when you open those doors. But I think for me, the bigger point was, you know, I just kind of felt that space, and that space was not cavernous like many fire department bays are. It's a fairly small space, and I kind of looked at the walls, and it seemed to me like you could almost kind of see a little, you know, a little bit of kind of a tinge of, you know, diesel, of smoke on the walls. They didn't look like, you know, they didn't look freshly painted anymore. I guess that's the point. They didn't look freshly painted anymore. Given the number of vehicles in those bays and the small space, and the fact that we really need to do all we can to support these townspeople who serve on the fire department, in my opinion, because you know, this is a huge commitment, and we rely on them, and we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to, of course, ensure their safety. But you know, what you see in more and more towns is going to kind of a higher and higher level of professional department, and that's also very expensive. And so that's why I really think we need to support what we've got. I think, you know, we have a department that seems to work really well, and it makes sense for us to invest in that. So anyway, I was a little disappointed that reserves didn't rank higher, but they didn't rank higher on my list either. And I struggled with this, but one of the places I landed was, well, you know, we're in this tough situation. We have been for the last 2 years, where we haven't had a clear reserve balance. And so, you know, are we going to, moving forward through the Budget Committee and the Selectmen, you know, are we gonna be able to defend a large request? I don't know if we can this year, until we get some of these other things corrected, that need to be corrected with regard to the reserve accounts. So, anyway, that's where I see them. I think it's kind of, it's unfortunate because that they're not higher. I think, especially for Public Works, it needs to be higher because there is a need there. Those trucks are coming up. But this is where we are. So, anyone else have any other comments?
On the reserve, I guess I'm just wondering why that isn't sort of a given. It's just something that's done. Why does it, is that, I don't know if normal's the right word.
Yeah.
Because I think there should always be some savings going on. If you
Yeah.
can, obviously, I mean, there's always gonna be things that we need to pay for.
Yeah.
And I don't know the history of the town and where we've been and where we're headed.
Well, I
really,
think,
but-
I think the challenge is often that, you know, these schedules, they represent what the department heads feel that they need. And those things are generally real needs. However, the town has limited, you know, still has limited resources. And so, and we have to think about that balance with regard to the tax rate each year. And so, generally, most towns our size don't just put a specific, you know, number, don't just like fully fund the reserves each year. They don't automatically fund the reserves each year. They don't automatically fund them. They do it like we're doing it. At least that's been my experience. Because there's just more need than there are resources generally in a small community. So, but maybe we'll go further that direction. And then, of course, the other challenge for us specifically is we haven't really had significant reserves in the past, so we bonded everything. So we're still paying bond payments. You know, we have a significant debt that we're servicing. And my recollection is that we're somewhere around, at least last year, I thought we're somewhere close to $1 million, I believe,
correct.
in bond payments.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's very hard to save while you're making large loan payments. So that's kind of the
Sure.
position we're in. So we kind of have to thread that needle a little bit. Now, that said, my hope would be that this reserve request still makes it onto the warrant. Because I think it's really important. So, but, you know, it's also kind of like when you're rating reserves versus projects, they're very different things, right?
Well, that's where I struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
Seem to equate.
I wonder almost whether we should think about, like, you know, handling them separately.
Well, and I guess like in relation to this, because if you look at that Public Works reserve, in order to pay for, you know, the new plow truck 5 years from now,
Yeah.
funding the reserve this year is kind of needed.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect, and if would it be appropriate for that plow truck 5 years from now to be a request that then if the town approves of it, then the reserve is a given, because we've said that's, which, I mean, would entirely change the budgeting process, but at the same time, it kind of, because otherwise, if we don't fund that this year, then, I mean,
Next
Calvin's whole schedule is then gonna be thrown off.
So don't request, once we approve it, don't request it every year, just put it in the budget,
Right.
basically. And the fire department's kind of the same way. You know, you've got
Well,
a
because
schedule.
I mean, they're long-term assets, and it's not, I mean, you gotta plan a ways out,
Yeah,
on some of
that's
that
a
stuff,
lot
and
of
so like
money,
going through
right.
this each year is a fact of like, oh, well, the reserve didn't get funded, and so, you know, potentially the purchase of that vehicle is gonna be another year down the road, assuming that, you know, the reserve gets funded next year.
Yeah, but at the same time, if we don't, I think it's important for us to, at a bare minimum, review those reserve requests because, you know, we want to make sure that, for example, the supporting documentation is there for what's being requested and that it seems reasonable, right? I mean, it's important to, part of this process is also answering questions and queuing up these requests for the subsequent meetings, you know, the budget committee meetings and the selectmen. So you know, I really don't think, I think it's important that the reserves be a part of the process. But, you know, I don't know if we should think about ranking them separately or not. I mean, there may be, I mean, you only do have one, you know, kind of, well, you have multiple sources of funds, but in terms of reserve, of course, it's pretty much just taxation. And it has, you know, we have to address it somehow. So in some ways, you could be in a situation some years where, you know, it's just really compelling. And it is important to rank it. It is important that, you know, you say that, look, this is number one because we've got this big purchase. It's coming up next year or the year after. I think you could look at it both ways.
Yeah, I think it's hard when you're looking at items where you feel like you need them now, and then to your point, yeah, this is 5 years down the road. And I mean, I'm a saver at heart, so I love to put money in reserves and have it
Yeah.
planned out. But it's so hard when you see these items that you feel like, okay, we need these today.
Yeah, and they
So you
score
have-
higher because of that. Because there's a more compelling safety need. Yeah, I think that's true. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's something town needs to think about a little bit, you know, because we, you know, it's like voting every year on whether you're gonna pay your mortgage or not, right? You've got a commitment to a public works department, a commitment to a fire department. Certainly, some of these things in the fire department requests are additions to that. But the reserves and say the Quint, for instance, which I'd almost consider another kind of reserve type thing, something that's the cost of doing business in the fire department. You know, the reserve for the public works and the Quint. It's just something you have to do. The rest of them are, for the most part, and the assessing is something you have to do. Although that's not a regular item, that's a huge ticket item, I'll say. But it's just something that has to be done on a regular basis. Do you just put it in the budget and set that aside every year and not have it come to this committee? Because just set what the budget is and just go there and just have that reserved for those particular items. Because, I mean, every year, I mean, we're gonna have a public works truck come up every X number of years, right?
well, there's always this question of whether you can push it out a little further.
Well, I get that, but if you level load the budget, then everybody's tax base stays the same.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, it's continuously fluctuating and everybody gets all unnerved about it. So, you know, you've got to do these things. You know, you got to save for a car. You got to save for certain things. I don't know.
So that's the ideal. And I think
It
we'd
is the
like to
ideal.
move more in that direction. But I think it is also important that we reflect on where we are
Yeah. No.
with regard to, for example, those bond payments. That $1 million of bond payments annually that we're making.
No, I
So
agree.
maybe we can't get there all the way now. Yeah, but,
No, I agree.
yeah.
Wondering whether, because I know we had talked about, you know, at some point in the spring, kind of regrouping to revisit this process for next year, recognizing that we we have limitations this year, just given reserve accounts and all that, and wondering if maybe the process and what gets reviewed and how whether that would be part of that conversation, or I don't know, or,
sure.
you know,
Yeah.
where that decision comes from ultimately, but.
Yeah, I guess my suggestion this year might be that we point this out in the conveyance memo with regard to the reserve. And that we point that out, that it didn't really, that there is that conundrum with regard to projects versus reserves. And that, you know, we also need to make sure we know what's being maintained in reserve, which certainly in my mind speaks to having reserves in a separate account. And I guess the other reason I think that's important is because if you just have those funds, if you're just keeping track of those funds on paper, and it's all maintained in the undesignated fund, it also makes it very difficult for you to get an accurate undesignated fund balance over time, which is really important for the town. So anyway, I think, you know, both of those things are worth mentioning with regard to those reserves. And then the other thing, just a, you know, reminder again, so, you know, reserves are things for future years, and project money is money that's going to be spent in that upcoming fiscal year, in that upcoming year. So maybe we address it in the conveyance memo? Does that make sense to you guys? Okay.
I thought there was a comment in here about maybe reevaluating some of these criteria. Joe, did you mention,
Did I
or maybe I
have to
read
go
it
look
wrong?
and see, maybe, let me go look and see what I wrote.
Where did I see it?
It's on the Public Works Reserve, number 2, scoring seems skewed due to categories, need to assess categories at a future date.
I don't
So
see,
J-
go ahead,
you had said, yeah, public reserve, Public Works Reserve scoring seems skewed due to categories, need to assess categories at a future date.
oh.
What was
The
your
public,
thought?
oh, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you can't really check all the boxes for public works. You know.
Doesn't quite fit.
Well, I mean, I think that gets back to the point of when we're doing a reserve request, these categories don't quite fit what it is that we're, you know, the reasoning behind.
So general, there's not a specific.
In general, there's not, yeah, for the reserves, there's not a good way to, you know, I mean, does it help all these categories? Absolutely. But it's an indirect way, you know.
It's kind of hard because you're not thinking about one vehicle or one project.
Yeah, I mean.
You're thinking about a group of projects at some point in the future.
I know folks would say, well, does it directly produce income and does it indirectly produce income? You know, I rate it as a 1. No, it doesn't directly do that or indirectly do that, but somebody might say, well, no, it absolutely does, because we clear the roads and we do all this stuff and everybody can get to work and everybody can go to get and go and you know, I mean, so you can argue it the other way pretty easily.
Right.
Right? But when you look at the project myopically, just by itself, it's like, well, no, it doesn't. But if you threw something in there, then you have to go back to all the other categories, and a lot of it didn't directly, on a lot of my sheets, didn't directly affect income in the town, and I think I kind of purposefully did that to make it all an even level field, you know. But just subcategories, and I've said this before, that some of, I mean, this is a great tool to utilize at this point, but we may wanna break out the, like you say, the projects from
So we may
from
want,
the.
we may want to have a few really simple, different
E-
criteria for reserves.
For the reserves, right.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think, I think it's, I think
That's
that's
a good
what,
way to- that's a
that
good
might be
idea.
a better way
Yeah.
to describe it, yeah. A simpler way to do the reserves, you know,
Uh-huh.
just the cost of doing business, you know, even if they have to go to a town meeting every year, like we're doing, to do that, to say, all right, well, these are really important. We need a plow truck in 2 years, we need a fire truck working, or a ladder truck working, in 5 years, let's say. And you've gotta just section that out as a separate entity.
Yep.
Project-wise, I think this is a good
Mhm.
list.
With regard to the conveyance memo, we already covered some of the comments about the stream crossing, you know, like why that ranked high. I would think that would be good to include in the conveyance memo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the stream crossing is kind of a no-brainer with the amount of money the state's throwing into it. As long as the project stays within its bounds, that was the problem we had last time around, is the cost of the project, increased quite a bit due to circumstances, various circumstances.
yeah.
World circumstances, that's what it came down to.
Okay, so, getting back to the conveyance memo, are there other notes here that we want to include, other points that we want to emphasize? Just looking through the notes here. Okay. I think the truck is pretty self-explanatory. Do we want to say anything about trying to get on kind of a share plan with the trucks? Or is that, do you guys feel like that's kind of outside of our wheelhouse?
Talking about the public work truck?
Well, the fire department and the public works trucks, pickups. So, you know, the sharing of pickups. So, you know, do we want to offer some kind of support in one direction or the other with regard to, some-
Chief's car versus public works?
well, not really a versus, more like, is there a way, what's the most efficient way to like kind of share and pass down these trucks? So we can get the most efficient use out of them and, of the fleet. So for example, I think I heard someone mention, may have been Jerry, this idea that, it really kind of makes sense to have, a chief's truck, which then after, you know, what do I know, 6 or 7 years of duty, gets reassigned to Public Works. Because it won't get that many miles as the chief's truck. It won't get nearly the level, the intensity of use that it would get as a Public Works truck. So after 6 or 7 years, this truck is still gonna be in really good shape and ready to have its second life as a Public Works truck. So I thought that was a great idea,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's a good
So-
comment.
Yeah,
That's a good
Okay.
way to
Yeah, that'd be a
structure
good
things.
comment in the, yeah.
It's not something I would have thought of,
I think
so
it,
I think that's a
yeah,
good
it'll
point.
probably take one more iteration to do that.
Yeah, exactly,
But, yeah, we're not set up for that right this second,
exactly.
but it is a goal.
Okay.
But I do think the chief's vehicle is an important subject
Mm-hmm, yes.
that we need.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
attack
yeah, exactly.
Sooner than later. It can't wait for that evolution to
Yeah.
go through.
Well, that's kind of the challenge, is
Yeah.
if we did go ahead and buy a chief's vehicle now,
Then
then
it
in
would
6 or 7
be-
years would go to Public Works.
Exactly.
It wouldn't meet
that
the
would be
current Public
that-
Works
right,
need.
Right,
Yeah.
that would be the part of the point there is it does need to get done, sooner than later.
You look at the public works schedule, Calvin's truck is up next year.
No, I know, that's
Mm.
right.
And it's pretty beat as it is right now. I don't know.
So it's kind of like we really need to at least add one in the mix.
Well, that's
Yeah.
why this time around, if that truck was available to become the chief's truck temporarily as the
Oh,
used
temporarily.
vehicle, and then swap it up.
Calvin's truck.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that it's kind of, like I said.
It's gonna
back-
take you a
it's
little bit to
backwards.
get there.
It's
It is.
skewed right now.
Right.
It doesn't, which is unfortunate.
Does he plow with that truck? Does he plow intersections and stuff with that
I
truck?
don't believe so, no.
No, okay,
And keep in mind that both of those trucks are used for very different reasons.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Like the
absolutely.
fire truck, you know, he, you know.
thank
he's-
you.
Yeah.
He wants to haul more people. in
And
it.
he wants to set it up a specific way.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah, he talked about that.
right. Which,
Yeah.
you know, probably wouldn't be appropriate for Calvin to be using it set up the way the chief wants it.
No, but,
Uh-huh, yeah, that's another
You know.
cost, yeah, that you have to figure into that.
So
yeah.
you're saying you don't think it would work to pass it down, or to, you know,
You could, but it's more than what Calvin would need for a truck. Cause the chief would wanted like a crew cab, right? So he could haul the guys and, you know, a service body to, so.
Service body.
Calvin doesn't need that for his everyday type
Right,
truck.
that's right. That's the other thing too, is that, yeah, the needs are slightly
Little different,
different.
Yeah, mm-hmm, yep,
food for thought.
it's a good point.
But it doesn't mean that standardizing wouldn't help
No,
either.
all right.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
That Public Works truck, it scored pretty high for me, just because, I know that truck, the Public Works pickup, and, this time around, I think I had it third or something like that.
That's a plow truck.
Right, that's the
Yeah,
1
that's-
ton.
That's not.
Yeah, sorry, not
that's
Calvin's, but
Not
the,
Calvin's. Yeah,
exactly.
that's a
It's the
different
1 ton.
subject, I think.
Yes, so the 1 ton though scored high for me, and it's because I see a lot of community benefit from that truck, because it's in service every day. It's out there every day, putting in culverts, whatever the job is, doing, on a ditch job, it's out there, carrying guys and equipment, the flaggers, the cones, all that stuff, culverts. So it scored high for me. I do have some concern about the fact that on where did it end up here? It ended up pretty low, didn't it?
it was
What's
fourth.
Okay, 4th, yeah. Okay, well,
But they were all fairly
It's
close in
hard.
score,
Yeah,
the top
yeah.
4.
yeah. But, it's kind of hard because for the fire and rescue equipment, there is this public safety aspect that's related to a situation that is immediate. It might be an accident, or something like that, immediate need. Whereas road maintenance, it's more like preventive safety. It's more like preventive safety. but it's every day and all the time, and very critical. So, anyway, yeah, I guess they are pretty close. Okay. So getting back to our notes here, let me give that some thought with regard to how to frame the pickups. I think it is important that we say something with regard to the need there, that we, clearly say that we see the need there for both of these vehicles, for the Public Works truck and the chief's truck.
Well,
But they didn't rank as high. I mean, that's just that simple.
yeah, I
But
think,
it still is, there are a lot of needs this year. That's the bottom line.
but I think though, like I say, the chief's vehicle and the public works truck are two separate subjects.
Yep.
It's just the chief's vehicle against what might be coming up in the future might be the discussion comment that needs to be taken up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think the public works truck is probably pretty clear as to what the 1 ton of what it's gonna be used for. The secondary issue with the public works truck is, they have a truck now that they're gonna, I'll say retire, but they're gonna utilize a little bit. I think we talked about that, a little added expense,
Mm-hmm.
to keep that going. I guess the question is, how far do you keep that going before you let it go? And does it need to be replaced, right?
And how do
we
you
had that
replace it?
comment
Yeah,
earlier
yeah.
About, well, you're gonna have
Exactly.
this now, and you're gonna use a older truck, and how, is that a truck that needs to be replaced or not later? Or are you all set with what you have, and that's just kind of an added extra, cause you're gonna quote unquote just sunset it? And really sunset it, not come back and look for it later.
Maybe the point is that clarity is needed,
Yeah,
that if the old truck is to be retained,
yeah,
that at some point in the future, it doesn't become a request for a new truck.
that's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's important, because
Uh-huh.
people will not like that very much, if that became a new truck or a new need. But it needs to be, I'll say, more justified than just, it's not worth getting rid of, but we're gonna keep using it. I think it'll probably scare a few folks, in that, capacity. We should be, again, back to the pickup truck plan for the town. How's that? That's kind of what we have to, the town needs to figure out, put in the right order, so that you get the hand down appropriately. Again, it's not easy, but it does, I think it's a smart idea. I think it's a doable idea. I think it just needs to be put in place and laid out on paper to say, okay, we're gonna do this on year 1, and this on year 5, and this on year 10, and this is how we get the progression and we get the savings out of it. Because they're expensive.
I think the viability and different proposals for a plan need to be further vetted.
Yeah,
Because I think Jerry also had a really good point, which is, okay, you make all this investment, for example, in this chief's truck, you get the utility body,
right.
and you get the crew cab, and I seem to recall there were some other features, I can't recall exactly what they were, that he was looking for there. But, probably a few other bells and whistles that make it set up for the kind of service the chief needs. So then if you turn it over to Public Works and then the chief gets a new vehicle, you're paying for all that stuff again.
Right.
That's the loss. So, for example, that utility body's really expensive.
Right. No, I agree.
So, or utility cabinet, is that what they call it, a utility body?
They call
They
it a
do.
service body.
Service body, thank you. That's it. Yeah, that service body is really expensive. So, that needs, I think, and the best, in my mind, kind of the best place for that is with the manager and the department heads. Hopefully, they can take a harder look at this in the months ahead and come up with some options. So, yeah, maybe we're just not quite there yet.
Yep, no,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's where it belongs to,
Yeah.
is to come up with the whole overall plan. I think
Yeah,
One point I just wanna remind you of, cause I think I heard it when we were over at the fire station, is that, as in regard to the chief's truck, I think he negotiated when coming on as chief, as part of that, of coming on.
well, yeah, I mean, there is a savings, I mean, I'll say savings. There's a trade-off, because then you're not paying his stipend, right, I think is what you're talking about?
No, I think,
Or-
you know,
Just the commitment.
just
Yeah.
to take the job, he negotiated taking the job as part of getting the truck, so he wouldn't have to use his own. So he negotiated in good.
getting a
We
new truck?
committed to-
Yeah, getting his
Oh,
own,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Oh, okay, uh-huh.
I think that was
Yeah.
part of that negotiation.
Oh, well,
And of course,
I didn't
that's
know
not
that.
something.
So
we
he
know.
negotiated in good
Yeah,
faith,
yeah.
right, so I
Yeah, yeah.
I just throw that out
Uh-huh,
there too.
yeah, it's important, isn't it?
Well, it is, cause
It
I mean,
wasn't
that's,
clear to me that that was the case before, when we were talking about it.
what was that?
It was not clear
Oh,
that that was the case in the original hiring process.
I think that's,
I wasn't
Did he put
here.
that in his?
he may have, I'm pretty sure he said
I
it.
think
That's
yeah,
that's
it
the
did come up.
impression that I got, and
Right.
whether it was, I
Yeah, I
don't know
was-
whether it was explicitly like saying within 2 years we're gonna get a vehicle,
Right,
or it's
that-
like at some point we wanna get a vehicle so you don't have to
Right.
use your own. I don't know
Well,
whether it was
that's a different problem.
committed or,
Well, I mean, I say it's a different problem, but yeah, I guess that wasn't clear, that that was what the commitment of the town was to that position.
Yeah, or what the timing
I think
was.
that, yeah. If that's true, then that's a different discussion on what we do with this request.
Yeah, well, it's a good point.
It's a
Yeah.
totally different discussion point. It's not actually necessary CIP discussion.
well, I don't know the process, but was
Yeah.
there like an official job offer extended to him, in which case that would lay out, that was
Yeah,
that part of it.
I don't know, I wasn't here for that.
Yeah, I wasn't here
so-
for that either. I just thought that's what I heard him say at the last meeting.
Somebody needs to clarify that.
Yeah, that was like, so
I'll
at
say
that point,
Jerry
at that
needs to
point, it's a
clarify
legal,
that.
at that point, it's a legal commitment, I don't think it's not
But-
part of this, it's like.
Yeah, it's not part of this
But-
process at all, so, but if that was the point of it, then it probably should have been maybe clearer.
I don't think he's gonna be too awfully upset, cause he was willing to take even the public works truck as long as he didn't use his own, so that might,
Uh-huh.
I get that,
Right.
but,
It's the
but,
right thing to
but
do
there's
to get that
two,
vehicle
yeah, I mean, there's
set
a
up.
couple different ways to approach it, and I think it probably needs a different discussion in a different forum.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too.
But, I mean, it's on here, it's a reasonable request as it is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the rest of it, how it works out on how we stagger
Right.
trucks in general, utility trucks in general, whether it be fire or public works, that I
Well-
think is a different discussion.
Let me ask this question. Did we find the chief's request reasonable?
Yeah,
I think it,
Okay.
I think it's, as it's presented, it's completely reasonable, and I think it's a good way to go. Could that truck be repurposed eventually? I think so. Might not be an exact fit, but it would, could become something as a runner truck for the public works later, when
Yeah.
it's retired.
Right.
Right? But, and I think the chief makes a really good request that he does put his vehicle in harm's way continuously. I mean, I approached the scene yesterday at Newellbrook and Swamp with somebody apparently maybe going the wrong way down the wrong side of the road. That, you know, there are personal vehicles out there stopping traffic before the rigs get there.
Well,
The chief's car being one of them.
mhm.
I'm not sure if he was actually there. I think he was. So his was probably one of the vehicles there. You know, it is. That's the first vehicle sitting at the top of the hill. You come
Yeah.
up, you know, you're coming in at 40, 50 miles an hour. as you
Exactly.
normally do or faster. And it's his vehicle that's sitting there blocking him and anyone else down below from getting hit. It's that simple of a problem. You know, if his truck gets hit and it gets disabled, then what does he use to get to the next fire? That's a really good, you know, granted, that can happen with a public truck. But I would say, well, public truck just got hit, his truck's the backup, right? Hate to put it that way, but that's the reality of it, right? And then
Absolutely.
we have to deal with a public truck that just got hit at a accident.
And not to mention, you probably have an unhappy insurance company, you have an unhappy chief.
Yes.
And
I would think there's.
it might not end well, you know, that
Well,
stuff doesn't always
I
end well.
mean, he's gonna just end up the way he ends up on the policy pays for, right? I mean, that's just the way it is, and everybody's gonna feel bad about it, but that's just gonna unfortunately be the end of it, right?
Chris, I'd also be curious, there's a lot of volunteers that do the same thing with
They
their personal
do.
vehicles,
They
and I'm
do
not sure
do
how
it.
that would all play
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
I'm sure, that- I mean, towns, there's a lot of towns that
No,
have similar
I
issues.
agree, and I think the chief's kinda touted this as not necessarily his vehicle, it could be the command vehicle, so maybe it's not his continuously, depending on what's going on. You know, he goes on vacation, maybe he leaves the vehicle for assistant chief or somebody else.
Oh, I
to-
think that's definitely what
I
he
think
would
that's
do.
exactly what
Yeah,
we're
he would
talking
not
about.
use this
Yeah,
person.
no, it's not a
no,
personal vehicle, yeah.
I think so too. and
Yeah, that was
that's-
very clear to me.
And again, that wasn't necessarily,
Yeah, and
clear, but I believe that's the intention. Yeah, so, I mean, I think this is a overall good thing to go do. And whether it's in his contract or not, I have no idea.
No, I don't think it was in his contract. I think they just sort of negotiate in just good faith. I'd like to, you know,
yeah.
I-
That's
I
not the
think
kind of thing that goes in contract.
And to just sort of like, you know, thinking out loud and looking at the fire truck and the public works trucks that they use every day, I see fire as the truck maybe lasting almost twice as long as
Yes.
the public works truck.
So why not just use it twice as long?
Right.
Right,
That's where you get the most efficiency. You
Yeah.
just use it
Right.
twice as
You
long.
might be buying two
Yeah.
public works trucks to the fire as
right,
one.
right.
Right.
They're gonna wash it,
Right.
wax it, take care of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think so.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Which is basically, there is no magic
'Cause,
plan.
yeah, I mean,
It's reality.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been silent, but, you know, I do, the scanners are going in my house all the time. So this past weekend during the storm event is when I heard, you know, Calvin being called out personally to get them down to here and here and here, but that doesn't happen that often. It's
Right.
usually, you know, chief's on scene at every incident that's going on, for the most part.
Right.
You know, him and the assistant chief are on scene at everything.
Yeah.
I did also appreciate from him that what he was talking about was a very utilitarian vehicle, rather than a command vehicle.
Right.
Yeah.
And typically, these command vehicles are SUVs, and they're set up with a command center in the back
Right,
that
right.
pulls out
Yeah.
to the tailgate,
Right.
and
I don't
that's
think we're there
where
yet.
the scene command
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Right, and they're very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not what he's looking for. He's just looking for the utilitarian vehicle
Right.
that will also pull trailer.
Right.
and-
It's basically a big toolbox on wheels.
It's
Exactly. Right.
yeah. It's another toolbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Putting the Scott packs on the back
Yeah.
after they're
Right.
used, or
Right.
bring more to the scene, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. I think that's the,
Exactly. So do we feel that that project ranked about where it should? We have the public works vehicle, and then we have assessing, and then we have the chief's vehicle. And I want to look at that just because, this is the time where if we felt that adjustments were in order, they would get made.
Am I right? I I had the chief's car above the public works truck as it ranked.
Yeah.
Again, it was not from an opinion, but the way that the numbers just going
Right,
off the
right.
rankings, which not to
I
say
mean-
that that's right, but.
If you pull the public work truck just out of the mix because that's one of, actually, that one's not, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm getting confused with the reserve.
I guess the only thought there is an existing public works truck, now granted not what they need, but there is an alternative where, I mean, I guess the chief's personal truck is an alternative as well, it just doesn't seem as viable.
Just
Yeah.
Stupid question, is Calvin's truck, 1 ton?
Yep, I believe it is. His pickup,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so.
But the one that he's requesting is a flatbed dump,
Flatbed Dom.
Dually.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it.
yeah.
A little bit different.
It is. Mm-hmm. I just, yeah, I could see that, yeah, I can go either way. I mean, I see the utility in both of them.
Yeah.
It, you know, again. it's-
Well, you know, the other part of this is that this isn't really a normal year, and that these ARPA funds are out there.
It isn't.
So some of these issues may get resolved, regardless of their rank,
They are, yeah,
by the selectmen,
yeah,
you know, in their wisdom, looking at their different options with
Okay.
regard to.
yeah. Yeah, like I say, I think we're in a good position to,
Yeah, and then it's kind of like the assessing, well, do you bump the chief's vehicle above the assessing? And I think, you know, that's a challenge too. I mean, when you look at where we are with regard to our assessment, that we're at 80%, and that we can't fall below 70%. And also that we may not be fully utilizing things like the homestead exemption because of where we are with the 80%. And that's, you know, that's coming down the road. It may be 2025, but that's only a few years away. It's gonna be a big cost. We need to be saving for it.
Well, it didn't
It's
sound like
important.
there's a couple of years out of getting the assessment done.
Yeah,
So we're
yeah.
being at 80%.
Yeah,
What-
exactly.
What happens the next couple of years?
Right, exactly. So, does it make sense? Do we have enough wiggle room there to bump it up? I don't know. I think that's kind of that's a tough one. That's a tough one. But, you know, everything, this reval is important to everything we do. It's, you know, it's important, and it's important to the whole town with regard to equity. So, it's tough.
I gotta just, yeah, there's definitely some opportunity here to do things to get what the town needs and set us up in the right way.
With relation to the ARPA funds?
In relation to the opera, yeah, it's the selectman's gonna have to,
Yeah.
there's definitely some,
So,
again, not this committee's necessarily.
yeah, so I don't hear anyone
Charter.
here eager to make any changes to the ranking.
I think-
So I think we leave it where it
I
is.
would say just
Yeah.
leave it where it is.
Okay, and we
then-
just point this out that we feel his request is reasonable. and-
Yeah.
But there are many
exactly.
compelling projects this year,
Right.
that's the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that both the chief's vehicle and the public works truck would be candidates for ARPA. And that's gonna be a decision that needs to be made outside this committee.
Mhm.
And then depending on the ranking of the rest of them
Mhm.
in regards to that
Yeah.
is, you know, the chief's car may bubble up on top.
Uh-huh, yeah,
And then
yeah.
you raise,
And the selectmen, they do have the ability through the policy to, you know, picking and choosing isn't really, you know, an enviable path or a path we want to promote. But, you know, there can be times when it's necessary. And the selectmen asked, when we wrote the policy, to be able to preserve that.
Right.
They
And-
can do
And
that.
the town's got the final say with the vote.
Yeah, and the
so,
town's got the
I
final
mean,
say with the
All
vote.
the ARPA funds have to
Exactly.
be voted in, so, you know, it's a matter of bringing the best mix forward is really what it comes down to. The most appropriate mix based on the rating and ranking of these projects in general, and then how it really works out in the long-term plan that the selectmen come up with,
Yeah.
and what the recommendation is for funding, you know, whether raise, ARPA, or other.
Do we want to say anything about the fire department generator and the Plymouth? So of course, you know, here we are, we're ranking Plymouth number 2. And the current generator isn't big enough to service the Plymouth. Okay, but the chief said at the last meeting that
Get around it.
they could they could work with it for a few
Yeah.
years, didn't have to all be done
Right.
this year.
I mean, I think the fire
So-
department generator is important, but I also think the health of the firefighters is probably more important,
Yeah,
right? You can still keep the place warm with what you have,
yeah, maybe,
although it needs to be replaced, but the exhaust is, I think, a big
uh-huh,
health thing in general. You know, it gets back to people being out, long-term care, the whole 9 yards of health benefit of the exhaust system. There is a health benefit to the fire department generator, because that's, you know, a warming station, right?
Right,
That's where people
exactly.
really get warm, and, you know, we just had a storm this weekend, you know, half of Oxford County's been out in western Cumberland for, you know, 4 or 5 days, so they certainly had their share of issues and opened up their warming stations the last couple of days, so, I mean, it's important as well.
yeah, yeah. Okay, any other comments or notes for the conveyance letter?
We haven't talked about the Quint.
The Quint, yes,
Anyone
thank you.
Throw in on that.
Yeah, we should. So,
Did we talk about that? Was it our first year? Didn't it come up?
oh, this has been coming up.
Yeah, but,
When we
Yeah.
bought it, right? Was that, no?
well, when
no,
we first
had
started
it.
the committee, I thought there was something that came up for it. No?
Well-
Or did we just,
The Quint, you know, it's interesting because the Quint was in some ways part of the genesis of forming the committee. Because there were a lot of people in town who were unhappy with the Quint. You know, a
Right.
lot of people, the town was very split over the Quint. And so the question was asked, well, you know, what are we doing to plan for our capital expenditures? Versus just saying, let's let the townspeople decide and put it on the warrant.
Right.
So, you know, the Quint has gone from being a $750,000 placeholder on the replacement schedule for an upcoming out year, which wasn't even sufficient to buy a Quint. The real number was never, I don't think, put on there. I mean, a new Quint's gotta be like over $1 million.
Yeah, it's gonna be up there.
Yeah, so, that it wasn't even sufficient, and that was on there, we were kind of kicking that can down the road for a number of years. Well, you know, what about the Quint? And everybody's been kind of chewing on it and trying to figure out, well, what are the different opportunities? And we've had a few different fire chiefs, and a few different perspectives on the Quint. And then finally, last year, Kathy and Chief Tripp got together, and Chief Tripp, I think, made the suggestion of, look, why don't we just invest in the current Quint, which is still in really good shape, and see if we can get another 10 years of service out of it. And that made a lot of sense, I think, to a lot of people, because the Quint does have, you know, as we learned at the last meeting, it really does have a lot of utility, especially in terms of safety of our fire department members.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was great to hear
So-
more about it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I like the idea of rehabbing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, reinvesting into that seems like the smart.
Should we say, just maybe we should, what should we, do we want to point out that we support that reinvestment application? Or something, say some kind of positive words about that, versus purchasing a new Quint?
Right, that's
Okay.
kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, replacement is cost prohibitive was what I wrote down. Very versatile,
So, but it's very useful and
Very useful.
important to firefighter
Yeah.
safety.
Mm-hmm, okay.
You get another 10 years out of that truck,
good.
it would be good, and you'd almost have a traveling museum, and how many towns can say that, right?
Probably a lot.
It
Right.
No, it is very versatile.
Yeah.
Okay, are we missing anything else?
Jeez, catch.
Office
generator.
Maybe, yeah, what else? So, I think, the assessing is, I think is obvious, it's pretty much obvious. Are we saying anything about the exhaust removal? Did we cover that in our notes here?
You talked about the walls.
Yeah, maybe a few words about the exhaust removal.
I think the town,
Okay,
and the town office generator is important. That is probably the one that you could actually say that directly affects, income into the town. Having that up and running. And indirectly too, having the town operate, having that. That's definitely an important thing. I think.
where it really comes in is if the power's off for 5 days.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You'd be
That's where it
down.
really
You'd be-
comes in.
You'd be down and out.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be good.
So I think kind of implicit in the score, I think is the question,
Right.
can the current generator with some maintenance, can we get, can we reliably get some more life out of it?
Well, that's a good question, because we thought that the last time it was supposed to kick on and it didn't.
Yeah.
So where it has had work, hopefully it will kick on the next time. Maybe we'll know this
So it didn't
Friday.
kick on recently, after you had the work done?
We haven't lost power for it to
Okay,
kick,
I-
at least while
Oh,
we're
you
in.
guys didn't lose it?
I didn't know if you
Yeah,
lost
we didn't
power.
lose it here last time.
Yeah.
Friday might be a good test though, because I guess it's
Is there
good.
a way to, with, I mean, I know the newer ones have automatic, maintenance.
Self-test, yeah.
Self-test,
I mean, is there a way to,
Fire it up just to see if it.
yeah, or,
works.
I mean, I don't know where
I don't know if there's an emergency switch that you can, I don't really know a lot.
Whose
about-
responsibility is it, that generator?
Chiefs, he works on it.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, when it went off last time, he was the one that got everything going. He made the emergency call to get
oh,
it
okay,
fixed.
Yeah.
I see.
was that
That's
a matter,
nice.
like, is it the contacts that he had, or?
Yeah, he's just been taking care of it because that was just assigned to him. It was news to me. He was on it like real fast, when
Yeah.
when it went down, he called the service guy and
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
I think it probably came under emergency
Yeah.
services, so
Uh-huh.
chief got it, I think is
Chief,
how that
right.
worked out in the long run. Yeah.
Do you lose power a lot here?
We've only lost it that one time since I've been here. Yeah. Yeah. And it was down for, I don't know, a couple hours before they got it back up and running.
Yeah, we've been fortunate, I think, the last probably 5, 6 years with regard to longer-term outages, but think the longest one I can remember, like recently, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, it's like, they're 5 or 6 days. It's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does, yeah, we get our share, that's for sure. So, yeah, again, I think the score also reflects the fact that we have a lot of competing priorities. Where I see the town hall generator is, it's important, and it's critically important for the operation of town hall. If the power goes out, and my hope is that we're able to keep this one going for a few more years. If the power goes out and the generator doesn't start, the worst thing that can happen is you have to close town hall
Right.
Right.
and you have to send people home, and it's an inconvenience. Versus, say, I think we talked about this last time, the fire department, where it is like an emergency warming center, and it is the key part of the town's emergency operations. So that's, that's where it ends up. But it surely doesn't change the fact that at some point here in the near future, the issue's gonna have to be addressed.
Does, Public Works, do they do their own, maintenance? Do they have a full-time mechanic?
They do have a mechanic over there.
And just out of, curiosity, wondering, would like something like a town generator fall more under the Public Works purview?
I don't know. I don't know how much the mechanic over there knows about the generator.
I'm just saying, is it, it's a propane
Yeah.
engine?
Yeah.
which
Gas
is-
license.
Is I guess,
Propane.
so it's propane,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
similar to a diesel engine, so
Right.
just a similar type of, not necessarily from an electrical standpoint, but just from like from the engine. I don't know, just a curiosity, thinking about, okay, so like we get the ice storm and you're out for a period of time, generator doesn't start. Of course, getting a generator mechanic at that point is gonna be all but impossible, but if you have public works full-time mechanic, they're probably easier to get a hold of, but.
Maybe, but keep in mind, over at Public Works, you got 5 guys over there breaking equipment and 1 guy fixing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you,
That guy's all out. You're low on the totem pole. At
you
that.
know, if it's a winter storm, I bet you that mechanic's working on something.
Yeah.
Not always, but there's always a good chance that something has gone,
Yeah.
you know, where they need his help.
Yeah.
Not always. And, we can still do an emergency, as long as we can get up and running and then it runs after it doesn't start.
Right.
I think we'll be okay. It wouldn't be okay if they couldn't get it to run and we was in a prolonged power outage with the heat and whatnot, but I think you guys are on the right track.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm concerned. I think they're bigger
Yeah.
and more pressing needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
I do.
Jerry.
I mean,
Yeah.
not that I didn't think it was important, everything we've talked about, but you have to first lose power, and then it doesn't work. So when you think about just some of the other items.
And too, keep in mind, this was a latecomer, and the reason why it was a latecomer to the list was because it didn't start. So it
Right.
wouldn't have even been
Oh.
on the list if that had to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
They said, you might want to think about getting a new generator. They didn't mean immediately, but it was certainly
Right.
worth,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll never forget my days as a planner with the town of New Gloucester, and I'd be working on some ordinance revision, and I'd have it I would have been working for the last 40 minutes and forgotten to hit that save button, and
Yeah.
then, of course, that's when the power would go out. You'd have that drop.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Or a tax payment going on at
Yeah.
the same time, and then all of a sudden you're in the process of it. Power goes out. And it's like, okay,
It's
did it
chaos.
hit the system or did it not?
Did it not?
That kind of happened the other day. It was just a glitch. They were in a transaction, and when they went to hit print, it froze. And they were like, okay,
What happened?
What
Yeah.
happened? And it's not a big deal. I mean, that stuff happens, but it's actually a matter of calling Trio to get it resolved.
Right, yeah, it costs CSX
You know,
action.
so, we get through it.
Okay, so I think at this point in the process, we have pretty much covered we've gone through the rankings. It sounds like the committee feels that the rankings are reasonable, how they came out. And we've also gone through the notes and identified some of the notes that we think would be important to wrap into a conveyance memo. And my plan is, kind of like we did last year, is to draft something after this meeting. Now I know kind of where we're at, and to put it together, to shoot it off to the committee, okay? And I'll CC Jerry on that and just say, look, this is draft. Please do not respond to the group because of FOAA, but this is my plan to submit this. If you have any concerns, please contact me directly to let me know. Otherwise, I will be going ahead and submitting this to Jerry with the scores. Yeah.
Perfect.
Does that sound reasonable to you guys?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, so then I think the next question is the scores. What we've done in the past, and this is my recollection, and Michelle, maybe help me if I'm not thinking about this correctly, but my recollection is that in the past, we've only sent the sheet with the rankings to the selectmen, together with the conveyance memo. And then the individual committee member scores, we have provided that to Jerry for the file.
I think
Is
so.
that your recollection too? Okay.
Yep.
So, and that's just, and those individual sheets for the individual committee members, those are just intended as documentation for if a selectman wanted to see them, or if a department head wanted to see, have more detail on why, for example, their project didn't rank higher. So, and then for the selectmen, we keep it fairly simple. We do the rankings, and just want to see if is it just that one page that we do, or is it more than that?
I was thinking we had two, but I don't see that we would have sent these.
Yeah, I think it's just the one.
Probably, and maybe I'm thinking of the memo. Yeah, that might be what I'm thinking of as two.
Things that
Mhm.
we've supplied to the selectmen before.
Okay,
I think that's probably all they need unless they have any questions.
yeah. So,
And you also present to them, right, Paul? Don't you actually present that to them at a meeting?
I certainly can.
I
Yeah.
don't know, I think in the past.
I have some, there have been years where I've missed it.
Right, right.
But I believe last year I did.
Mhm.
I try to make that conveyance memo pretty self-explanatory,
Right, right.
so
I
that
remember
it
that.
carries,
Yeah.
because it's really not just the selectmen. It's the budget committee, it's, the townspeople.
Yeah.
It does.
So the idea is to kind of memorialize what's behind those scores.
Yep.
Why things landed where they landed. So that, also so that the selectmen can reference it later in this long budget process. Because sometimes the same question gets asked over and over and over. And so, it gives them a way to look back. Okay, so I think at this point, all we're missing is a motion. A recommendation that the rankings be forwarded to the selectmen, together with a conveyance memo, or something like that.
You can make that motion.
Okay?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and all those in favor? Okay, so 4-0. right, very good. Any other business that we need to cover?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, good, good. And I know that there's been some discussion about trying to further refine the process, which I think has been really good discussion. We want to make sure we act on that, and we do that at some point. Generally, at this point, though, like, I'm really cognizant of the fact that both Jerry and Joe are going to be very busy with regard to the budget process and all that, so we'll look at doing that.
Yeah, it's gonna get crazy.
Probably, either in the fall or the late summer, maybe. Okay.
Certainly after town meeting.
After town
Yeah.
meeting, exactly.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
very good.
yeah, we can look at some of this stuff, see what, breaking up the project versus the,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and that's something, maybe the selectmen will have some input into ahead of time as to what they're thinking out loud.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you, Jerry.
Well, you're
So
welcome.
it's been a good year this year, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Thank
gone
you,
well.
the Department
Yeah.
heads as well, because everybody,
Yeah.
everybody did a good job pulling it together pretty
Everybody did a
quickly.
really good
It
job,
was
yeah.
very, very thorough and very quick.
Yeah,
So it was
I
much
feel like it gets
appreciated.
better and better every year.
It does get better.
it does,
We
exactly.
fine-tune it.
Yeah, yeah.
We learn,
Yeah.
everybody else learns.
Exactly, and it's been wonderful having Pete this year, too.
Mhm.
Pete,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, great. So do I have a motion to
I'll-
adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I'm good.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
All in favor, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah.
Jerry, did you want a paper copy? And
Sure.
I know you'll get,
I'll
we'll get
get
you
one.
the,
Is this extra or?
yeah, I just printed